Welcome into Beyond the Press Box. I'm Yash. Alongside me are my co-host, Zach Kyleman, Codey Emerson, and Will Hatzel. Get ready to hear great discussions and debates from the biggest storylines in sports. We cover topics ranging from the NFL, the NBA, MLB, college football, college basketball, and many more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the roundtable discussion between four friends who are passionate sports fans. Before we begin the show, we do want to let you know that through our partnership with the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and many more, without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. Big news that came out of the NFL world today, and Alex Smith on Instagram, he announced his retirement from the game of football. And so I just want to kind of start off our NFL segment here, just kind of get your thoughts on Alex Smith's retirement and kind of his overall career. Just get your thoughts on Alex Smith overall.
Well, I think his retirement definitely was something that was seriously, of course, being considered, and I can't argue with him. He came back, he made his point, he played to his ability last year. Was one of the key factors, I think, as to why the Washington football team were able to reestablish themselves, get into the playoffs, even in a weak division, and comeback player of the year for obvious reasons. No one thought he would ever play again. Some people thought some doctors even said he might die from the injury that he had in 2018. So you have to think about how amazing it is, first off, his end of his career with Washington, how he was able to accomplish what he could, at least coming back from injury. Overall with his career, though, I would say, I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing, but definitely one of the best game managers or offensive runners in the last few years. When it comes to, you can plug him in and play, he can get your offense at least to a level that's above standard, to where you can win football games. Alex Smith was your guy. And what's funny is he was almost a bust early on in his career. Remember, he was with Utah during the Urban Meyer era of that time. He was brought in early on, and some people thought he was going to be a bust in the NFL because he wasn't producing right away. Come in Jim Harbaugh. He actually had some of his best years under Jim Harbaugh and then went on to move and play for Andy Reid for a little bit in Kansas City, mentored Patrick Mahomes. He's been up and down and around the bend. And I would say that, 3-time Pro Bowler, and you get the Comeback Player of the Year award for one of the most amazing stories in, and at least in NFL recent history. Not saying it was his choice, but it's just incredible to think he ever even played again. One heck of a career is all I can tell you. And I think it's best that he goes, I think just for what he came back to prove, I think that's enough to say I can go off into the sunset and, show that I made my mark on this league. And he had good reasons for it. He wanted to go and spend some more time with family. I completely understand that. His family supported his journey back all the way. And I think he's going to just give back in that sense with going and enjoying his family time now in retirement. But overall, I would say a successful career for Alex Smith, especially where it started at. It definitely, I would say, ended on a high note in the last two destinations in particular that he had in the NFL.
Yeah, this is more about the story than anything. When you look at, Zach, you hit the nail on the head with some doctors saying he could die. And that's that's more than just football. When we're talking about Alex Smith, some thought he may die, some thought he may have to have his leg amputated and whatnot. And for him to actually, get through all that, I lost track of how many surgeries he had. I know it was up there. Probably more than any human being should probably have in their lifetime. But he battled through all that and came back and started 6 games for Washington last year. And overall, you just look at the career. Zach, once again, I think he hit it the nail on the head right there. He was never going to wow you with, mobility, with arm strength, with anything, but he really didn't need to. I think the term with some quarterbacks, the term game manager, I know that's a kind of a derogatory term nowadays. But back then it wasn't. I mean, Alex Smith was the guy that probably wasn't going to lose you the game, but he wasn't going to make go above and beyond to win you the game either. And that's no knock on him. That's, right down the middle, having a pretty solid career. Heck, I'd take he got drafted in 2005. That's a 15-year career. I'll gladly take that. Stats are secondary to, just the longevity of what a great NFL career it was. And once again, you bring up how he could have been labeled a bust, Zach. Yeah, he threw in 4 of his first 5 seasons. He had 11 interceptions, 16, 12, and 10. He was looking like, who knows? But then he goes on to throw 5, 5, 7, 6, 7, 8, 5, and 5. So he carved out a very nice role for him in his career. And he had a few good years in Kansas City. Once again, Zach, you brought up Coach Harbaugh. It's kind of unfortunate, he lost his job. I believe he was the one lost his job to Colin Kaepernick, I think.
Correct.
So now it's kind of unfortunate situation and kind of an injury. Just, injuries open the door for some people and close them on somebody else. But he was able to move on to Kansas City and then finish his career in Washington. And also the biggest thing, which Zach, you also brought up, his family. That he wants to spend time with his family, and you can't. If you knock a guy for saying, "Oh no, you should be playing a few more years," absolutely not. He's made well more than enough money in his career to support his family, his kids, and everything like that. So just a good old ride off into the sunset for Alex Smith. He deserved the kind of send off that he got, which you saw all the respect that he got from players this year. So that was probably enough for him to earn the respect of his peers, and you can't ask for much more than that. So he'll ride off into the sunset on a pretty nice note.
Yeah, Alex Smith is one of those guys everybody should respect and appreciate, of course, because of the most recent story with him with, overcoming that horrific injury and then the leg getting infected and whatnot. And I believe it was like 17 surgeries. So not only does the guy suffer a compound fracture to his right tibia and fibula, then he has to go through 17 different surgeries to fully repair it. Then the leg got infected. Then there's talks of, oh my God, he might have to lose the leg. I mean, and again, remember, this guy's in his 30s. He's got kids. He has a family. Like, okay, even though football is done for him, the guy still wants to walk and be mobile and be there for his kids and enjoy other things in life. The stuff that we all, whether you're an athlete or not, we all take for granted, being able to have mobility and being able to walk and have eyesight and things like that. And he was one of the many people that do get tested over time with, and have the possibility of losing that. So that's a great story. And again, even though many of us aren't athletes or professional athletes, the one thing we could all relate on or with and appreciate about Alex Smith is his determination to overcome the injury and the many setbacks and whatnot. So, I mean, he's a legend. He's goated for that. So even though he may not have been an elite passer or broke a lot of records, not going to be a Hall of Famer, look, as you guys mentioned, okay, he was actually good enough. He was one of those guys where some would say he was average. I would say over time in his later years in San Francisco and then his best years, which arguably came in Kansas City, he became a solid quarterback. I think you could say he went from being average to good. He really, as we say with rookie quarterbacks, well, you have to put a good offense around him. You got to have an offensive line to protect them. He's got to have wide receivers to throw to. Well, he had a better supporting cast there again in his last couple of years of San Francisco when they became a Super Bowl team. And then, of course, he had a couple of good teams to play on with Kansas City. They had a solid defense. I would even argue maybe they even had a better offense at some point in Kansas City than what he had in San Francisco. You guys talk about how, he was a reliable of enough quarterback, a good enough of a game manager. Cody, you mentioned how the interception numbers went down drastically as his career progressed. Same with his fumbles. In his first 3 seasons in the league, he fumbled the ball over 20 times. And all of a sudden, you go from doing it 6 to 9 times a year to 3 or 4. I mean, it's impossible to not, you know, to cough up the ball at any time when you're a quarterback. The whole point is how many times can you not do it? Can it not be a frequent thing? And he was able to master that in terms of not throwing a lot of interceptions, not fumbling a lot. And I always thought that he kind of got screwed over out of the job in San Francisco. I think even if they wanted to move on from him, I think Alex Smith deserved to continue to play in that Super Bowl season. I think he deserved to play in that Super Bowl. It's nothing against Colin Kaepernick. I don't make this comment because of the politics and what he's done and what he's believed in. I don't judge Colin Kaepernick on that. I judge the way he played and the way Alex Smith played. But Alex Smith, he left San Francisco, had a couple of good years in Kansas City. And like I said, his best years. I mean, he wasn't a 4,000-yard passer until his last year in Kansas City in 2017 and the poor guy again, they go into, and I understand Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback, but 2 times Alex Smith has gotten passed up even after doing a pretty damn good job. Like I said, 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns in 2017, career highs in passing yards, career highs in touchdown passes, tied for a second lowest amount of interceptions, one of his best QB ratings. I'm trying to skim the stats here quickly. I think it's his second or third best, top 3 in completion percentage and quarterback ratings throughout his career. Or actually was his highest quarterback rating. So the point is, I'm just saying, even in his best years, he got overlooked and replaced, and that could be, a debate for another day. But all in all, Alex Smith will always have my respect. I think he's going to have the respect of many football fans, no matter who you're a fan of for what team. I wish his career could have panned out a little bit better or ended on a more ideal note, but you know what? That's a pretty solid note to come back from that huge injury and all those issues and to be able to play football at least a little bit more. So he's an inspiration to all, whether you're an athlete or not. And I think that's what we have to remember about him, a solid football player, but an even stronger and better person that, we're going to tell his story for years to come.
Yeah, you touched on, Alex Smith getting passed up there, Will, multiple times. But the one point that I want to touch on here is the mentor role that he played for Colin Kaepernick, even when he went down with that concussion in, I think it was a Rams game. That was the game in 2013 when Kaepernick came in for him, or 2012. When Kaepernick came in for him. So, well, that was back when the Rams were in St. Louis. Feels like ages ago, but, no, just the role that Alex Smith played as a mentor for him all season. And Kaepernick, even in a Super Bowl, I think even during the Monday pre-Super Bowl media days, Kaepernick said that, he even credited Smith with, helping him with calling plays, signals, and kind of walking him through how to run certain plays and things of that nature through practice and things. So, I mean, just the mentorship role that he played for Kaepernick, and then Patrick Mahomes did the same thing. He said, I learned a lot from sitting behind Alex Smith that the year that Patrick Mahomes was drafted. Yeah, I think you have Alex Smith had a great impact on the field on what he did, but I think he had an even bigger impact in mentoring some of these younger guys, and really helping them flourish. And again, I can't wait to see what he does off the field now, and in retirement. And I know, who knows? We'll see. I know Romo and a couple of these ex-NFLers have gotten into broadcasting. I know Aaron Rodgers wants to be the host of Jeopardy when he retires. Apparently, that's what he said. Who knows what Alex Smith will do? Maybe get into broadcasting or get in. I know a couple of ex-NFL guys have gotten into entrepreneurship. They've started businesses, things of that nature. So excited to see what Alex Smith does in his future. definitely, like Zach said, we'll start by spending more time with his family. I think he said that in his video. Is he wants to? He said his kids should expect more backyard football in the near future. So, but Will, you mentioned that Alex Smith probably not a Hall of Famer, although the career that he's had. But that's what I want to go to next year is the Hall of Fame, and it seems like so many people retiring, man. This past week, Julian Edelman, another one of those guys who retired as a Patriot, 12 years with the Patriots, drafted in 2009, a former college quarterback from our very own Maction. A little bit of Mac. Shout out to the Mac there a little bit. So, but he just incredible career. Way he was able to transition from the quarterback position into being a slot receiver, Brady's go-to guy for those couple years. And there's been a lot of talks when I saw this. When I saw Edelman, I saw the video on Twitter, and I saw the comments about him. There's a lot of talks about, does Julian Edelman belong in the Hall of Fame? For his career, for his career accomplishments. And so that's kind of where I wanted to turn to is, do you think Edelman should be in the Hall of Fame? And I know when we were talking earlier through our group chat and off the air, Zach and Will, you guys brought up Devin Hester as another Chicago Bears great and kind of compared Devin Hester and Edelman a little bit. So I just want to get your thoughts. This is a little two-parter. Does Edelman belong in the Hall of Fame? And then how does Edelman's career accomplishments stack up with that of Hester when it comes to looking at the Hall of Fame?
First off, as I did when you first mentioned it, salute to you, Julian Edelman. I had a feeling this was gonna be the case. There was no harder wide receiver, harder worker, more competitive wide receiver, I don't think, in the NFL than Julian Edelman. He literally laid his body on the line and you talk about the definition of leaving it all on the field. Julian Edelman was just that. I can't tell you how many times, and granted, that's what led to injuries a lot of times in his career. You can knock him for that, or you can praise him. That's your choice. I'll take the high road and praise him for it, because not every wide receiver wants to put their body in harm's way. But he said, F that. I'm gonna do what it takes to do whatever I need to for this team. And you talked about slot receivers. He, along with Wes Welker, and kind of redefined what a slot receiver was in the NFL. Not the tallest guy, not the fastest guy, but he wasn't going to be outworked by any means. Now, here's, like you mentioned, Yash, and it's the topic of the Hall of Fame. It's going to be discussed, and discussed some more. As a Patriots fan, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? No, he is not. But at the same time, I don't know if he gets there. It's very hard to kind of put him in, because he basically has had two separate careers if you really look at his numbers. He's had the regular season where he hasn't been that great. I mean, there's no debating that his regular season numbers, you just look at him and we're like, this guy, you're really talking about this guy for the Hall of Fame? Really? I mean, that's where some people lie, and you know what? I'll respect their opinion. Where the Hall of Fame discussion comes in is where Julian Edelman, his postseason, because my God, he is up there in terms of all-timers. You could argue he's one of the greatest postseason wide receivers in NFL history. I think he made the greatest catch in Super Bowl history against the Falcons, and thank God he did, because prior to the greatest catch was the David Tyree catch against my against my Patriots. So thank God Julian Edelman made that catch. I'm just going to rattle off some quick numbers. Most catches in playoff history. Julian Edelman ranks second, only behind Jerry Rice. Most receiving yards in playoff history. Julian Edelman ranks only second, once again, behind Jerry Rice. Most 100-yard receiving games. Julian Edelman, second to, you guessed it, Jerry Rice. Most catches in Super Bowl history. Julian Edelman ranks fifth, excuse me. Most receiving yards in Super Bowl history. Julian Edelman ranks fourth. And only just one of 7 wide receivers to win Super Bowl MVP. He's the only player to have multiple 20 reception campaigns in the postseason. Guys, he's done it 3 times. And Edelman, Jerry Rice, and Steve Smith are the only players with 300 receiving yards in multiple postseasons. All of them have done it twice. It's when you look at that and the body of work, could he make the Hall of Fame? He could. Now here's where I'm going to, and it pains me to say it, I don't think he gets in. It's just, you look at, if he had a better regular season, this would be, I don't think, a question. Does he get in the Patriots Hall of Fame? You're goddamn right he does. There is a seat reserved for Julian Edelman whenever he wants it. In terms of the actual Hall, now, if we are talking best postseason receivers of all time, yes, I think he's definitely up there. I don't think the resume is good enough to get him in. I'll be more than happy if he does. But at the end of the day, I just don't think the regular season numbers, people are going to look to that and say, where was this guy in the regular season? Granted, and that goes back to, he put his body on the line and every single play, and he was hurt. He missed a ton of games in his career, and that definitely hurt his regular season numbers. So it pains me to say it, but no, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame. Then, people where the Devin Hester part of it comes in. I saw this on Twitter and I sent it to our group chat, and people saying Devin Hester belongs in before Julian Edelman does. I don't quite know about that. Devin Hester, in terms of a returner and a special teams player, best to ever do it. No question. As a wide receiver, Julian Edelman, in my opinion, had a better career as a receiver than Devin Hester did. I'll let Will and Zach kind of touch on that. But that's kind of, as a special teamer, yeah, Devin Hester belongs in the Hall of Fame for what he did on the special team side of things. And you could argue, does Julian Edelman, for what he did in the postseason, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? Are either of them going to make it? I don't know. That's not for us to decide. That's up for the Hall of Fame. But definitely a controversial topic. But my gut feeling is Julian Edelman won't make the Hall of Fame. It kills me to say it. But once again, if he does, I'll be the first one to be happy for him.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I had no idea that Edelman was this dominant and this great when it came to the postseason. Now, granted, okay, for every year of making the playoffs and being able to go on a lot of deep playoff runs, meaning you go and play in 3, 4, 5 games of postseason because you're going to the Super Bowl every time. Obviously that helps. I don't want to say inflates your stats, but it does. He had more opportunities to do that. But I mean, those are big numbers, and this is a tough case because, yeah, when it comes to the regular season numbers, Edelman doesn't come close to the Jerry Rice type of wide receivers, but he's up there in the talks when it comes to postseason performances and postseason statistics. Yeah, like Codey said, it's without a doubt, no doubt that he'll be in the Patriots Hall of Fame. I mean, he's top 5 in essentially every category when it comes to wide receivers for the history of that franchise. So, yeah, without a doubt, he'll be honored, probably in the Patriots, Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, whatever that organization does. Oh, when it comes to Devin Hester, yeah, it's kind of wild. Like even for me being a Bears fan, and I'm a supporter of Devin Hester making it to the Hall of Fame. The people that were some people out there, I don't know if they just are Patriots haters or what, but like they were trying to come up with all these arguments about other Bears receivers that deserve to go into the Hall before Edelman, or the Devin Hester argument. Devin Hester, yeah, the only way he's getting into the Hall of Fame is for his career as a returner, as arguably the best special teams player ever. Because statistically, he never had 1,000 receiving yards. He never caught more than 4 touchdown passes in a year, and that was once. Every other year was 2, 3, or 1. The guy has never had anywhere close to 100 receptions. I mean, his career high in receptions in a season was 57. So this is Devin Hester. I the debate, the argument shouldn't be should he get in for being a wide receiver. It's definitely because he was the best kickoff and punt return specialist in the league. So, or in the well, yeah, in the league as a whole. Um, and really the only thing I'll say this about Hester, I think it would be great if, in order to kind of change the Hall of Fame and get a little bit more respect and focus on special teamers, in terms of, I guess it's mostly going to be kickers and punters, because there's not that many guys that have done what Devin Hester's done. But like maybe Devin Hester could kind of usher us into a new era of where some special teams players, better, the best kickers, the Adam Vinatieri's of the league, can get into the Hall of Fame, and we could kind of honor players that have done some of those unique things right, or excelled in and been some of the best in, and that's Devin Hester. I mean, people talk about Deion Sanders, who used to play some special teams too. He's had some some career returns for touchdowns, not anywhere near Devin Hester, but he's not that far off. So if there's guys in the Hall of Fame that people want to attribute their special teams performances to their records and to their accolades, I don't see why Devin Hester can't make it then. Um, Edelman probably deserves to be in the Hall of Fame more than Devin Hester, though, because of those playoff statistics. I mean, what matters more? You catching the ball 10 times a game, winning multiple Super Bowls, winning Super Bowl MVP? Probably more than a punt return or the kickoff return. Again, though, it is a little bit tough because those regular season statistics, they're not bad. He put up solid numbers even in those years where he was injured and missed a lot of games. It's a toss up. I will say this: he's probably not a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, but I honestly think he may get more contention than people or consideration than people realize, because again, he's in the history books when it comes down to performing in the most important games ever. That's postseason games, whether it's the wild card or the division or the conference championship or especially the Super Bowl. He's up there with some of the greats, and I believe he should have some consideration. I don't know if I hit a vote, would I vote for him? I tell you what, it's going to depend on who else is in that free agency class, because there's a lot of free agency class. There's a lot of guys, the Hall of Fame class, that I tell you what, that it's going to be tough, man, because Cliff Branch, Torrey Holt, Terrell Jackson, Andre Johnson, these are guys that have had over 1,000 receptions in their careers. These are guys that have over 10,000 receiving yards, 70, 80 touchdowns in their careers, have Pro Bowls to their name. I mean, there's a couple of things that Edelman doesn't match with 11 other guys on this list I'm looking at that claims that they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame over Julian Edelman. So it's going to be tough. It's not a guarantee, but I think he's going to get more consideration than people think, and I think he's entitled to that consideration. But everybody remember, we're not comparing. I really don't even think this should be a debate, but I'm glad we're talking about it because it turned out to be a debate for some reason. There's no debate with Devin Hester and Julian Edelman, in my opinion, because Edelman was the better wide receiver, and Devin Hester's a trailblazer in terms of being the first and really the one and only guy to make a successful career, Hall of Fame-esque career in returning punts and kickoffs. So they both have different reasons to make it to the Hall. I guess if I'm going to say Devin Hester deserves to be in the Hall, maybe Julian Edelman does too. So I would be fine either way.
I think the argument of Devin Hester and Julian Edelman's a little misguided because you're talking about two different positions for reasons why you're going to be discussing Hall of Fame. Look, Devin Hester holds 11 NFL records for return specialists in that category. He's a 3-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler in that specific position. So the question more on that, I think, when it comes to debate really is about, well, if we're on fringe Hall of Fame talk, who are you talking about? Because that's the one thing the NFL Hall of Fame is, or the Hall of Fame, I can't say the NFL Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Fame in particular is about, is that special teams players don't really make it, is the thing. They don't like, it's a little different eye. You know, Ray Guy was the first punter to be brought in, and we haven't really had any other special teams players really make it since, unless it's, you know, we're talking someone that did both, like Deion Sanders, which always, that's the thing that people point to Devin Hester. It's like, well, Deion Sanders held all those records for the returns and the kickoffs. It was just that he was also a Pro Bowl defensive back as well. Okay, that's fine. But still, you're holding 11 NFL records. You had an All-Pro status. You know, to me, Hester's a Hall of Famer because he's got every check mark checked off that meets a Hall of Fame recognition. The only problem is that it's all for special teams things, which I think is a little baloney. He should be in the Hall of Fame, no questions asked. As for Julian Edelman, I say he does, but you got to wait a few years. He's definitely not a first ballot. And the thing is, you know, when people were bringing this up where it's like, well, Edelman's a Hall of Fame, I had some discussions. I was like, okay, well, what about Torrey Holt? What about Hines Ward? Which, by the way, Hines Ward, who is one of the more famous slot receivers, mind you, who had more production than Julian Edelman regular season wise, also is a Super Bowl champion. Why is he not there? That's another question I keep asking too. You know, if we're talking about guys need to be in, let's get the guys that are in first before we start jumping straight to conclusions on guys that, you know, I think can get in, but are going to need some time to actually let Hall of Fame stats and champions get in as well. I mean, that's what I'm talking about with Torrey Holt. Reggie Wayne's going to get in soon too. Honestly, Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne are probably going to get in next year, and they should get in next year, because I've been waiting on Torrey Holt for a little bit, and I've been surprised it's taking this long for for Isaac Bruce to wait for his companion to get a golden jacket. I'm just saying, you know, both of them were a reason why the greatest show on turf existed. Both of them were 10,000-yard receivers. Why is he not in yet? I ask the question every year since he's been eligible. But I think the argument of Hester and Edelman's misguided because people are just instantly going to, well, it's fringe. And I'm like, no, Hester's not really fringe. I think that's just, we need to stop labeling it as a special teams problem and say, hey, this guy was actually really damn good, and it's almost never going to be replicated ever again because of how the NFL has changed kickoffs in the way that they have. That's pretty damn special in itself. But to end this all, Edelman's going to be a Hall of Famer, I think, but you're going to have to wait some years. I think it's going to come to a year, like an off year with Hall of Fame candidates, that you're going to see him get in. Playoff wise, in terms of his numbers, and honestly, Will, I was the same way. Kind of snuck up on me. I knew that he was really damn good in the playoffs, just didn't see it as, oh my God, he's top 10 list everywhere, and number 2 or number 2 through 5 in most categories. Kind of impressive. You know, the highlight moments, yes, definitely Hall of Fame worthy. Those regular season numbers, and that's the thing we talk about with Hall of Famers, that's what you're going to be knocking him for, is, was he the complete package for his entire career and outstanding in all phases? You know, and that's the thing, is like, playoffs do count. And I think that that'll get him enough to where he'll get in, but you're definitely going to be waiting a few years, I think. And you'll be having discussions on social media coming through where it's going to be going, all right, when's his time? Come on. Just like how I am with Torrey Holt, where I'm like, all right, when's he getting in? I'm waiting any day now. You know, that's what it's going to be for him.
Yeah. I mean, again, phenomenal career by Julian Edelman, the squirrel, as they used to call him. I think Codey knows that all too well.
Yeah, that's. I don't know how he got that. I mean, well, I guess it's just because of the beard.
Yeah, and he just was.
He's short.
He was quick. Yeah,
he really wasn't quick though. He was. I mean, yeah, that was the thing. He was when but his route running. Yeah, oh my God, his route running is what, because I would look and I'd be like, how in the hell does Julian Edelman get open? Like so much. Yeah. He's not blowing by people. He's not Tyreek Hill. Yeah. It's just his precise route running, and he always finds the opens. Well, granted, I mean, obviously playing with Tom Brady helps. But he'd always find that spot to just sit down and be open, and it paid off.
Yeah.
Once again,
And
salute to him.
it's just remarkable as well. I think Bill Belichick even alluded to it after he had put out his retirement video, that he said that Edelman was one of the best guys that I've been around to coach. And he alluded to the transition that he made from a college quarterback to the wide receiver position, and yet how dominant he was in the playoffs at a position that he originally did not, was not starting at.
Hey, he
from
still
college.
showed off that quarterback arm every now and then.
Oh yeah.
And oh my God, it was so exciting to watch when he did.
Yeah. I remember when they ran. I think him and Amendola used to connect when the Amendola was with New
playoff
England.
game against the Ravens.
Yeah.
It's when they broke it out. And
Yeah.
oh my, they've been, the story behind that real quick is they had that in their playbook for a while, and they were just waiting for the perfect time. And you know what? No time like the present, especially in the playoffs, to break out a trick play.
That play changed the momentum of that contest too, because the Ravens actually bursted out of the gate, and that the Patriots needed some sort of spark. That actually helped them
get
back on track, and they ended up going.
No, but that I mean, he, like you said, he busted out that arm from time to time.
You can see him doing this celebration every now and then when he did touchdown. That was always funny to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like you said, ended up at the slot position, ended up being Tom Brady's go-to guy in the last couple of years, and phenomenal, stellar career. But like we've been saying, the Devin Hester. Devin Hester is a special teamer, and I can't really compare. It's like comparing apples and oranges in a way. You can't really compare apples to oranges. It just doesn't make sense. But Zach, you were gonna say something?
Let me add two, by the way. Yeah, I just got to add a little more. If we're gonna keep adding on pieces to this Hall of Fame discussion, so I can stop.
I'm all for
knocking people for that. Remember, he is in two different all decades teams as well. So you got to add in that as well. I'm just saying, the greatest returner to ever exist. You need to put him in there. You got to. It's a disservice if you don't. I'm not saying he's first ballot this year because this is first year of eligibility, mind you, but he's going to be in there. He needs to be in there. His impact on the game changing. In returning, there's no way I see in hell you will ever see that repeated ever.
When you're the greatest to ever do something, you belong in the Hall of Fame.
And I think most memorable moment for me watching Hester was that 06 Super Bowl when he ran that opening kickoff back against the Colts. So
that'll be hard to repeat too.
Yeah,
14 seconds.
I think 14 seconds, 100 yards.
The way the NFL keeps changing these rules, we're not going to have special teams one day. So it's like it's becoming an obsolete thing. Because I mean, look, it was just a couple of years ago, near the end of Hester's career, all of a sudden, they're changing the rules for trying to help prevent injuries, but yet we took away a very underrated part of the game. I was just gonna say quickly, I remember going to Bears games where you were more excited to see Devin Hester return a punt or a kickoff than anything else that was to happen in the game. I mean, the stadium, it would just become electric, and just like you could feel everybody get to the edge of the people would stand up on a punt return or a kickoff, guys, for Devin Hester. Any other time you're going to grab a beer or go pee because you're like, okay, whatever, we're going to get the ball back, go to the bathroom real quick, or let me get my beer or my pretzel. No, everybody in that stadium, even if you were a fan of another team, was watching to see what Devin was doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, special teams, like you said, the most underrated part of the game. And I think what happened, Will, was the decline, at least from what I've known, is of special teams. The reason they started to go more towards the safety, obviously the safety of the players, but I think that movie that came out, I think a couple of years ago with Will Smith, Concussion, I think is the name of that movie. Yeah, and they basically a bunch of former players sued off of brain injury, and that movie essentially keyed in on special teams being one of the major factors of brain injuries and things of that nature. And that's where the NFL started to kind of crack down a little bit on the safety issue.
Looking back, and that movie brought this up to me, by the way. It's kind of messed up looking back at how much they used on Monday Night Football, the segment Jacked Up, and seeing how many of those people probably were affected after their careers from head injuries. Those hits.
Yeah.
That used to be, I'm going to be honest, that used to be one of my favorite segments on Monday Night Football growing up. So kind of a different light after several years away from that.
But speaking of Chicago, it's good we brought the Devin Hester question up, because speaking of Chicago, Jim McMahon, former Chicago Bears quarterback, earlier this week stated that, quote, Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die. He said, Chicago has always emphasized defense and the running game, and they have never been able to, quote, develop a quarterback. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on Jim McMahon's comments that Chicago is a place where quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah, you know what? I don't disagree with him, because I mean, you look at, we've been talking about this for weeks, guys, the lack of successful quarterbacks that the Bears have had. And you know what it is, though? I don't think it's that quarterbacks come to die. It's they don't ever bring in a talented quarterback. They make mistakes when they draft guys like Trubisky. A lot of guys they've acquired or got over the years have sucked. I mean, the fact that Jay Cutler's the best quarterback the Bears have had since probably Jim McMahon, let me remind you this before Jim McMahon thinks he's all of a sudden a Hall of Fame quarterback. Jim McMahon never threw over 3,000 passing yards in a season. Jim McMahon's career high passing touchdowns was in 1985, mind you, when the Bears won the Super Bowl, where he had 15 touchdown passes. Also, his career high in passing yards was 2,392 in that 85 season. Jim McMahon wasn't an elite quarterback. He was maybe good his first couple of years. Now, this is a guy that also suffered through many injuries that affects his health to this day too. So Jim McMahon is really well respected in Chicago. And while a lot of people agree with him, I'm a little bit disappointed that he's going to trash an organization like the Bears when, in 1985, it was Walter Payton and that defense that led them to a Super Bowl. It wasn't Jim McMahon. I'm not going to be petty and say, well, Jim McMahon did nothing. Each and every one of those 15 touchdown passes, each and every one of those 2,392 yards helped them almost go undefeated in that season, helped them get to the postseason, helped them win a Super Bowl. So I'm not going to sit here and say that nothing he did mattered, but he's mostly known for causing trouble with the league with wearing the headbands and never getting along with Mike Ditka. Some claim that he might have helped lead to the firing and the demise of Mike Ditka in Chicago. Jim McMahon, for him to come off and say some of these things kind of disappoints me, because I get what he's saying. He's a guy that tells it like it is. He's blunt, he's brutally honest, but man, for a guy that really became who he was while playing in a Bears uniform, sure hasn't really shown it that much respect here lately. Like I said, the Bears, it's not like Jim McMahon came to the Bears and had a great career and then came to the Bears and sucked. He started in Chicago. Jay Cutler had a pretty good career, but Jay Cutler, I think, because he didn't maybe care as much as he should have been in terms of being competitive, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next topic about Trevor Lawrence and just how much winning and winning Super Bowls and things like that should matter for an individual that plays the sport. The Bears just never even had a good quarterback. There hasn't been Rex Grossman, the last Bears quarterback in a Super Bowl. Rex Grossman was
that's what I was going to say.
And that Bears offense in 2006 had Muhsin Mohammed, Bernard Berrien, Greg Olson, Devin Hester, couple different Thomas Jones, Cedric Benson, not the most electric offense in the world, but it was good enough. But Rex Grossman couldn't get the job done, and that's why Peyton Manning won. He was the team that had the better quarterback and the better offense won that game. So I get I do understand what Jim McMahon's saying. I'm a little bit disappointed that he doesn't show a little bit more respect for the franchise that he's famous for. He won another Super Bowl as the backup in Green Bay. I'm wondering if he's trolling the Bears a little bit for some reason, because I mean,
That's
should
the
make
other part of
everybody
the article
irate.
that I missed. He said that he said that the Packers was the best organization that he played for. So that was the other part of the article.
Played 6 games in 2 seasons for them. And I don't know if he started in those games or what, but let me probably just played a little bit, because let me just point out the fact
he was
that
a backup to Brett Favre
4 touchdowns
for
or 4
majority of
passes.
those.
Yeah, no touchdowns, no interception. I mean, if anybody out there that's listening is bored, Google Jim McMahon stats, and you tell me if that guy was ever a guy that had a fantastic career. He had some memorable moments and plays, but that guy wasn't the reason why the Bears won a Super Bowl. He wasn't the reason the team won anything, to be quite honest with you, if you look at those stats. So I'll end with this statement, because I know I could go on and on about this. You guys know I can rant and be heavy-handed on my teams, but I'll defend the Bears a little bit when it comes to somebody that's making statements that are more than likely troll statements, because really you didn't do anything in Green Bay, but you liked Green Bay. But maybe that's just the fact. Maybe he's got a point, because apparently the McCaskey family, I like many Bears fans have lost a lot of respect for them over the years, because they don't run this organization the right way. I just don't think saying that quarterbacks come to die in Chicago is the right statement, because there has been no quarterback that's been good to come here. Russell Wilson would have been the best quarterback since Sid Luckman from the 1940s to be in a Bears uniform. That didn't happen. And look, now they're stuck with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's his career is not going to die in Chicago. He's at the very end of his career in general. So it's not the Bears' fault for that, but it's because the Bears don't know how to acquire proper talent. So end rant.
You got to leave me off with that. Thank you very much for letting me lead into this, because I'm going to tell you one thing. I mean, I mainly took this as like, you got to pile on, Jim. Come on. It's not a good time right now. Like, you don't need to say this right now. Like, I still love you, man. Like, well, let me hold on to that punky QB, and that the fact I got the 85 team that still is rallying. But you know what? Forget it. I mean, he played for both teams. He said in the past that the guy wore a Bears jersey to the White House when the Green Bay Packers won anyway in the 90s. So, maybe it is a trolling mechanism. It could be. He's one of the classic NFL trolls in terms of just trying to poke fun at things, if you will, throughout his career, whether it's the NFL, the teams he's on, you name it. That's just how he's been.
Imagine if they had Twitter back in the day.
I know Jim McMahon would be one of the most controversial figures on a social media network if he had it in his prime. I would say that he'd be one of the first ones that you'd be kind of having question, and it'd be more fines than what he even got back then with Rozelle under the commissioner's chair. Look, Jim McMahon, I have respect for, because of the fact that he actually, for the Bears, is kind of like Julian Edelman, where it was all about leaving everything on the field. It's just that, his body didn't hold up as well as, say Edelman did at times. I mean, the guy never for the Bears had a full 16-game season under his belt. There were injuries at times that did knock him out. And of course, the Packers kind of, ended his main career in Chicago is what happened. Anyway, the comments, I'm like, to me, it just sucks because it's piling on. I mean, Chicago already is getting enough flack for how they're handling this season. There's rumors, of course, that they're maybe going to move up to that number 4 seed where Atlanta's at right now. But, beyond that, like, it's just adding on to what has been the mediocrity of the organization of the McCaskies since they've been running this. And I don't know, I kind of sympathize, because it's like, I'm kind of tired of the garbage QBs too. And I'm not saying that McMahon is like the end all be all, but when the fact that you can point to him and say, well, I mean, besides Trubisky getting a replacement Pro Bowl, McMahon kind of got the only other one since 1985 and moving on. Yeah. I mean, sure. We've been garbage with quarterbacks really since then. Where they come to die. Yeah. Like Will's saying, what do you mean by that? Are you talking good QBs come here and then their careers end? Because that's not very guided. Musa Muhammad's, I would think, quote of receivers come to die in Chicago, when that happened after he moved on from the Bears in the mid 2000s, that I thought made a lot of sense at the time. This one, no, not really. This is I think this is more just a former Bear frustrated with the organization's direction, like probably many are. And the quote probably came off as something that wasn't exactly what he was meaning. Look, if he's talking about that the Bears are just becoming this lackluster, like enough is enough with like drafting god awful quarterbacks or not running the organization the way it should. Yeah, I completely justify this comment, and I could see why he would say the Green Bay Packers are a better organization because they at least seem like they have direction most of the time. In the last 2 decades, the Bears, no, not really. I mean, Jerry
McMahon
Angelo.
also. I was gonna say McMahon also played for like 7 or 6 different teams after he left Chicago.
Yes, he did. But
Chargers, the Eagles, Vikings, Cardinals, and Browns before going to the Packers.
And in 1988, I mean, the Bears in '88. That's a funny thing. Up until McMahon was injured, they were one of the favorites for another championship in the '88 season. Really, that him getting knocked out against Green Bay changed the course of a lot of what that season could have been and how far Chicago could have gone. But yeah, that's why he was back up. After '88, his shoulder was messed up to the point where he really couldn't consistently be a starter anymore and wasn't at least enough to a level where he could be the guy. And I think Chicago was ready to move on at that point too. But, I take this quote as more, look, I'm frustrated just like him. And I'm not surprised. I'm done with the garbage. I've said this many times on this podcast and on Will's. I am tired of it. Let's figure something out. I don't want to say that firing everyone always works, but I was kind of assuming that was the case after what we saw last year, and I'm not trying to wish for anyone fired this year, but okay, come on, let's find some way to get a talent landed. I know it's rare in the NFL. It's kind of luck based even too, but my God, a curse like this has done at some point. The Cleveland Browns into that curse, in my opinion. Chicago's got to be up here anytime soon, right?
But what's interesting about this is he said when he was asked about if he watches the Bears or what the Bears should do in the draft, he basically said, I don't watch them. I don't care about them. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's
Zach, do you remember he was at the Bears 100-year convention a couple of years ago, and he was on the panels and he was talking with, I think he was up there with Mitch. So he
was up with Mitch, and
it's like,
his quote at the time was, if you play hard for the city, the fans will love you. That was what he said to Mitch Trubisky back in 2019.
A lot of things were different, a lot of differences compared to what we got in the that celebration and what went out on the field and the way the last 2 years after that transpired. So I don't look, it's not that I hate Jim McMahon or anything like that. We know he's kind of a controversial guy to begin with, like you guys mentioned, but I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a disrespect there. And I know he didn't technically bash the 85 team. So I don't really think Dan Hampton or any of those guys are probably taking offense, but even me just being a fan, just wow, you're going to slam on this organization that started your career and actually, gave you a chance. And I mean, you won a Super Bowl with them, and the 85 Bears go down as one of the greatest teams ever. Some people argue that they were one of the best they were the best team ever. That's a debate for another day, but I'm just saying, you were a part of something special, whether you contributed to it a lot or a little, and to just totally disown and disregard an organization, I don't know.
I mean it's also, by the way, anybody who's listening, if you haven't watched I watched the 30 for 30. I think I mentioned this to you guys. I watched the 30 for 30 on ESPN about the 85 Bears a couple days ago. So if anybody who's listening hasn't watched that, great documentary.
Oh, it's perfect.
That they have on the 85 Bears.
It's a perfect documentary. There's another one I've seen, and you'll laugh. I saw it on Crackle. Not joking, but it is a pretty good one too. It's not as good as the 30 for 30, but if you want some extra content 85 wise, it's basically all player in reviews, and they just kind of go in a chain. But
yeah,
look, I mean, Will McMahon saying that, I think it's a misguided quote, because I think it's not the correct way of saying they go to die, because there's not talent. But if we're talking organization criticism, Dan Hampton's one of the most famous 85 Bears that consistently bashes the organization anyway. So it's not like McMahon's the first one. There's other guys that are Hall of Fame talent that have been doing this too. It's just, I think I'm coming off as I really hate Jim McMahon now, and I really don't.
I'm kind of a believer that you should always kind of respect where you come from, or when you benefit from a situation.
I guess. And I mean,
but yeah, I think it's really
he
just should have. I think he. Oh no, and Hampton's okay. I mean, well, Hampton's an analyst on TV. He goes on NBC Sports Chicago. He goes on NBC5 Chicago. During football season. So like, it is part of his job. Jim McMahon. He's not an analyst. He just, I guess, came out of the blue and decided to talk the other day.
Yes, and I know, Will, you brought up. You said that the 85 Bears could be considered one of the greatest teams in NFL history, but I know we touched on this in our little group chat a couple days ago about the Patriots undefeated team versus the
Yash, we didn't go undefeated. Quit breaking my heart again.
Not the undefeated. Sorry, the almost undefeated team. My bad.
Quit reminding me.
Yash did unintentional trolling, and I'm laughing so hard.
I'm sorry. I didn't. That wasn't intentional.
Damn
okay,
Eli Manning.
That was not intentional. No, actually, it's damn you, David Tyree.
No, Eli Manning.
That's true.
Couldn't get his old ass on the ground.
Yeah,
we had like 5 chances to sack him and didn't.
Yeah,
so it's Eli Manning's fault.
But another discussion for another day on between those two teams. But we touched on a little old school QB and Jim McMahon. Now we'll get a little some of these up and coming quarterbacks. One, the presumptive number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, Trevor Lawrence. He was also on record. He stated that he doesn't feel like he has to prove anything to anyone, that his life, quote, just won't be defined by football. And this comes on the heels of Trevor and his wife. He just got married on Saturday. Trevor and his wife donating $20,000 to Jacksonville charities because Jags fans actually found his wedding registry and gifted him like $3,500 something worth of wedding gifts for Trevor Lawrence. So he donated $20,000, or he will be donating, $20,000 to charities around the Jacksonville area. And his Instagram message was, quote, "We can't wait to be a part of your community in the future," to Jags fans. So what do you make of Lawrence's comments on the fact that he's saying that his life just won't be defined by football itself?
Well, I mean, I think that's it for itself. I mean, you're a person. It shouldn't be just completely about the sport, but it's what is going to be his legacy in the sport, I guess. Looking at his comment, I think he was just trying to be honest, at least a little more, because honestly, if you're a rookie, you could use the chip on your shoulder story all you want to. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been a highly regarded prospect since high school. He has consistently hit every post that he's been needing to. He's a national champion. He was on one of the best programs in college football, and he dominated one of the best programs in college football, arguably the best one overall at the biggest stage. And he's been kind of showing up since he's been in high school. And I don't really completely disagree with how he stated that. I just think that, it does come off as like expected everything handed to me. That's what I think some people were arguing or complaining about, is it's like, it just feels like, oh, everything's going to come easy. It doesn't matter as long as you go in and play, everything else isn't about the drive. That's what I was reading into it as, but I don't think he's not completely against it, because he's like, look, I've been hitting these marks, I'm not, I guess I'm just going to, after we get into the sport, I'm going to, like many players will, at least at the beginning, make my money, and I got the rest of my life ahead of me, even after football, is kind of how I saw it. Does it, of course, bring up the issue of like, well, he maybe should have said chip on his shoulder. I was like, yeah, maybe. I mean, typical media thing. You might just want to say like, you want to show some drive, because I mean, others have been critiqued about it. I mean, Justin Fields, for crying out loud, got critiqued about it, and I didn't think that was kind of fair. But it's yeah, I would say not exactly the correct time for that. Although, it just not. I mean, I think he was trying to be honest, and the honesty there kind of backfired a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'd want in my quarterback. I'd want honesty. I don't want him to sugarcoat much of anything. I mean, too often nowadays we see players either next question or whatever. Oh, I'm going to deflect. No, Trevor Lawrence is being open. He's being honest. I'd that's a trade I want in my quarterback if I was a general manager. And also, can someone tell me why the hell he would have a chip on his shoulder?
That's what I'm saying.
Why? Trevor Lawrence has been, as much as I think Fields is close to talent-wise what Lawrence could be. Trevor Lawrence is the clear-cut number one in this draft. Zach, you mentioned it. He's been the best player in his class since high school. He's dominated. I just don't understand why he would have a chip on his shoulder. Maybe because he hasn't faced like adversity. Whoops, sorry, I cut out there. I don't think he's faced much adversity. Is that why people are maybe saying he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder? Or I don't know. But once again, I got no problem with his comments. It's what I'd want him to say. He's being open, he's being honest, and at the very end of the day, he's right. Sponsorship, because one, you see so many of these athletes now, they're not spending granted, for as much athletes that are saving money, there are some on the other hand that are spending like every penny of their check, which that you hate to see that side of things. But Trevor Lawrence could live off endorsement deals. He really could. This dude, every company on planet Earth is going to want to try and take a snag at Trevor Lawrence. And they're going to pay him a crap ton of money to do it. And so the dude could easily live off endorsements. He doesn't need football to, obviously he loves it, but at the very end of the day, he's human. He doesn't need to go out there and, try and prove doubters wrong, because I just don't think there are that many people doubting him. I think he's going to do fine. He needs help in Jacksonville, sure, because he can't just do it on his own, I don't think. I'm down for him proving me wrong. I think a lot of people are, but he doesn't have a chip, doesn't need to have a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't need this extra criticism, or because I don't think a lot of people are criticizing him. I haven't heard of many. And at the very end of the day, Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars believe in him, and he's going to go number one. There's no doubt about that. So at the very end of the day, also screw what everyone else thinks. Just go out there, do you. And for those who doubt, for those little people that do doubt you, go out and shut them up and prove them wrong. And I think he'll do just that. I think he'll do just fine in the NFL.
I can kind of understand why the initial reaction, like the first time he came out with these comments before he clarified because of the reaction. I understand the reaction because it's like, whoa, you're about to go first in the draft to a team that's basically sucked their entire, like literally the entire lifetime of this franchise. And we know there's a lot of players, not just quarterbacks, but a lot of players that were successful in college, but they don't necessarily pan out in the NFL. And I think a lot of people would be shocked if Trevor Lawrence doesn't pan out, but there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have been drafted to Jacksonville and teams like Jacksonville that don't succeed and don't change the franchise. So yeah, he's going to, even though he's Trevor Lawrence, even though he's coming from Clemson, there's going to be he's going to feel the pressure of that magnifying glass, hovering right above his head, because people are going to watch and critique every move and everything he says and does on the field and off the field. That's the perks of being a celebrity. You everything you say and do gets judged. Now, I will say this. Life is more than just your job. We say that with any job, say, oh, you know what, if you're not happy with your job, go find another one. Your overall happiness, your overall life is more important than money or your job. It's just, same with being an athlete. I would say, that's a lot of pressure. Like, you get celebrity status, you get a lot of money, you get all, this and that, but it's a stressful job. I can only imagine. However, look, there's going to be some reasonable expectation that you're going to take the job seriously, that you're going to try to turn around that franchise and win games and make them relevant and start helping them sell jerseys and sell tickets and fill out the stadium. And eventually the goal would be is to become a playoff team and contend for a Super Bowl. Those expectations, I mean, he should have those expectations. If you want to play in the NFL, it should be a combination of many things, the money, the fame, but also playing well and winning and succeeding. You know, I laugh when players say, oh, I just care about winning. I'm sure you want that big contract. Okay. And I don't blame you, but I also think you should care about the sport, especially when you're the quarterback, the most important position on a football team, arguably the most important position in any sport. It's the quarterback position is what makes or breaks a lot of teams. I'm a fan of a team that can't figure it out. We just talked about it. So, and that's why I was hinting to Jay Cutler earlier. Look, Jay Cutler, statistically one of the best quarterbacks to ever play for the Bears. He had some great plays. They had some good moments. They never had a lot more than just a few. And that's the thing I always criticized about Jay Cutler. Okay, he might have had a cannon of an arm. He might have threw for over 3,000 yards every year. He might have had, the Bears never had a 4,000 yard guy. We've talked about that before. Look, he's been one of the best quarterbacks ever in the Bears franchise history.
Well, you never know. The wed wife could do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
He's got an extra game to do it now.
Yeah, true.
And Marquise Godwin now too.
No, but the point is, guys, what I'm trying to make is like, okay, you could be good, but like, okay, how good do you want to be? Do you want to be the guy that, okay, I put up good stats, but we're not winning enough games. We don't make it to the playoffs. We don't ever get to a Super Bowl. Like, I'm sorry. I want my quarterback to care about winning. I don't want his life to end or be ruined because he doesn't win a Super Bowl ever. Look at Alex Smith. Okay. He's calling it a career. He's moving on to life, other things in life. Okay. I get what Trevor Lawrence is saying. So like, yeah, you don't worry yourself so sick that like you can't function or you're going to get depressed or you're going to commit suicide. Like, the sport and the job should never be taking that far. So I agree with Trevor Lawrence on that. I do hope he does. And I believe he does, truthfully. I really hope he does care enough, because an organization like Jacksonville desperately needs his help. He could be a legend and a hero for that franchise if he could turn it around. But yeah, you do kind of have to have genuine interest and genuine care. I do believe he does, and I agree with you guys. He doesn't. It's okay not to have a big chip on your shoulder when you are coming out of a situation where you won, where you proved yourself. Look, some people in life have success a lot quicker than others, or they are in an ideal situation. Okay, that's not a bad thing, but that's why you get to walk around and act all tough and all cool, because you're proven. There is still some stuff to prove. Can he be an NFL quarterback? Like I started with my little spiel here, that remains to be seen. That's the question he's going to have to answer here in a couple of months when we get the training camp and when the season starts again. But you got to care a little bit. I think he kind of just misspoke a little bit, his meaning, kind of like with Jim McMahon. But yeah, look, Jay Cutler is a perfect example of a guy, even though he had the talent, he just, quite frankly, didn't care. He didn't care about winning a Super Bowl. He didn't care about going to the playoffs. And that's a guy that leads you to what the Bears were in his tenure, an average to good team that was somewhat relevant, but they never went the distance because Cutler would just, shrug off interceptions, shrug off whatever. He just was there the play, I guess. So
that's what I was going to say.
I don't want a Jay Cutler. I want a Tom Brady.
I was
not
watching,
just from the resumes.
Watching Cutler, like there were some plays where he just wasn't even giving any effort whatsoever. So, but Trevor Lawrence, again, like Will, you mentioned, he probably misspoke there a little bit, but I agree with him. I think that that you have to have a life outside of football. There's a life after football. It's not football; just isn't your whole life. But then he went on actually today and clarified it and said he is 100% all in on football. So it's not like he's not like just thinking about life outside of football the whole time. He's 100% all in when it's time to focus in on football.
Well, the thing is with Trevor Lawrence, and I'm coming to his defense because, and guys, I swear if I could get paid for the amount of times I say this on this show when we talk NFL, where you're drafted matters. It's the pressure cannot all be on Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. There's pressure on Urban Meyer. There's pressure on Shad Khan, however, the
Yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars owner,
Yep.
slash GM. Trevor Lawrence can't save the Jacksonville Jaguars by himself. He simply can't. I highly, once again, if he can, more power to him. Go out and do it. But then there's also people, and I hate draft comparisons. I really do, because people are comparing him to, John Elway, Steve Young, heck, even Andrew Luck. I get the talent is there, but stop comparing him to these legends and basically asking him to live up to that. So they're putting unwanted pressure and unneeded pressure on Trevor Lawrence, because he just needs to go in and do his job and be the great quarterback that everyone knows he can be. He doesn't need to try and live up to, Steve Young, Joe Montana type numbers, and he can also hopefully trust that the organization, it hasn't done it, in the last few years, but put the pieces around him to have a successful NFL career. And so he doesn't need all the pressure in the world on him. And I kind of feel like the outside world, the outside media world is kind of doing that.
Yeah. I mean, again, he, like I said, he doesn't. He just needs to go out there and play, like Cody mentioned, and and Cody, you mentioned earlier too. I don't think there's a lot of people that are doubting him, either. So,
if you're doubting Trevor Lawrence, you haven't watched football.
Yeah. So, but we'll see how his NFL career starts off, and how we're definitely be paying attention next season to watching him on the Jaguars. But before we end our NFL segment, I must say to Alex Smith and Edelman, 12 Alex Smith for 15 years. Cody, you mentioned he drafted in 2005, 15-year NFL career. Edelman, 12-year NFL career. Really, and Cody, you saluted Edelman earlier. I really salute to both of those guys, because average NFL career, I don't know if you know this, the average NFL career is like 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years. So the fact that they were able to have continued success, especially with Edelman putting up the monster numbers that he did in the playoffs, for 12 years, and with the injuries that he had too, and Alex Smith as well for 15 years, the consistency that they were able to play at, when, like I said, when the average NFL career is only like 2.5 to 3 years, it is phenomenal. So salute to both of them, and wish them well in retirement. Wish Trevor Lawrence well as he starts off his NFL career, the presumptive number 1 overall pick in Jacksonville. But with that being said, we want to thank you for listening to Beyond the Press Box. You're listening to Beyond the Press Box, with Zach, Yash, Cody, and Will. Be sure to follow us, interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to listen to more great episodes, subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network as well. Just head over to unhingedsn.com to listen to us and check out other great podcasts featured on the network. Before we return to the show, we do want to let you know, through the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings 100+ channels, including CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and many more without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Hit the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. So we touched on the NFL segment there, and we touched on quarterback Chicago and the Hall of Fame discussion, Trevor Lawrence. But now I want to switch over to the NBA, and NBA having a tough time, it seems like, yet with the COVID issues and the players being as well as injury issues and players being out, and a lot of NBA officials and NBA team coaches are pointing to the compressed 72 game schedule as a reasoning as why there's so many injuries that are happening to players this season. So I just want to get your thoughts overall on what do you make of how the NBA has navigated through the start of this season, and if you were part of NBA leadership, what would you do differently, or what should the NBA have done differently to start this season?
Not have an all-star game, and actually give these guys, I would say maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks to just rest. It's unfortunate, all the injuries we've seen. It's well documented. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jamal Murray, KD, just to name a few. And we're about to talk about another injury later in the segment. So I don't blame it though on the condensed schedule. I'm gonna be honest, I don't quite know really what's causing it. The back-to-backs are, this year, in a condensed season, you're gonna have those, and I know the players hate them. I can only imagine what it's like, but that may have something to do with it. I've never been a fan of back-to-backs, but it's just really weird this year with everything going on. Postponed games due to COVID and everything like that. It's condensed it, and I don't. Like I said, I'm not correlating the two between the condensed season and the injuries, but at the same time, there's something there that it's just a little weird. Like I said, the big thing, I wouldn't have had an all-star game. There's no need to have an all-star game, especially this year. The players didn't want it. It wasn't that. To be honest, I don't think it was that entertaining. From what I remember, it was a blowout. From what I remember, the 3-point contest really wasn't that entertaining. Dunk contest was almost irrelevant. But the NBA cares about their cash, and granted, as an organization or as a league, they should. They're trying to make the most money possible after losing a ton of money, as everyone lost a ton of money in the sports world due to COVID. But you can't just try and make it all up in one fell swoop. You're going to end up ticking somebody off. And, one assistant coach said, this is hands down the worst schedule I've seen in 25 years. So I don't know what it is to kind of really put my finger on. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's something with medical staffs. I just can't really put my finger on it. It sucks that all these injuries are happening. And that's kind of, look, I hate players resting. I really do. But at the same time, I understand why they're doing it. With a compressed schedule, their bodies are being put through a lot more. And it's going to be curious to kind of see maybe when we can get back to a normal NBA season, have a normal off season and everything, because this kind of keeps pushing things back. So I don't know. That's a touchy topic. I hate seeing players injured, but I also don't have too much of an issue with the schedule. I think games are being played. I get travel is a thing too, but games are being played. It's just a bit higher rate than normal, like, per weekly basis and whatnot. But I don't think that the NBA honestly did the best that they could. I still think Adam Silver's doing a fairly good job of dealing, with COVID and with everything like that. The only thing that I harped on him for, like I said, was the All-Star game. That's about the only thing that I think the NBA could have done. You're going to have to play your games at the very end of the day. And players can choose to rest, and that's a detriment to us, the ticket, they're starting to allow fans too. So, and we're not getting to see everything, but We'll see what they do. I think I just don't have a solution. It's kind of hard because you know what? You're not going to please everybody with any decision you make. If you're Adam Silver, you expand the season a little bit. The GMs and the owners will be probably ticked off a little bit, but if you condense it, you're going to piss off the players. So Adam Silver's kind of in a lose spot, and he's doing the best that he can. So about like I said, All-Star game is about the only thing I can think of that I was not a fan of this year. But other than that, just hope that we don't have any more serious injuries going forward.
Hindsight's 2020. I mean, you live and learn as you progress through life or different situations, and then you kind of look back sometimes and you're like, oh, why didn't I do this? Or, I wish I could go back and change this. And it's like, okay, now that we're, 3/4 of the way through the season here, we're approaching, I mean, maybe even more than 3/4. I mean, we're approaching playoff time. It's closer than it appears. Looking back, could they have maybe shortened the season a little bit longer? They're made it a little bit shorter. Yeah. I know I was originally like, okay, who cares? Have the All-Star game. It's not like you're really trying that much anyways. It's maybe they could have still had obviously the players should still be honored. They should still have the voting and whatnot. Maybe you didn't necessarily need to have the game and the skills competition. A lot of they've played a lot of, to be fair, they've played a lot of basketball over the last couple of months. I mean, the bubble was rigorous for those teams that, especially, like the Lakers and the Heat, especially. Those are the two teams that have the most to have an excuse about, because they won, they played in the finals. So they played the longest and played the most games within this crammed stack of time over the last, 5 or 6 months.
I think like 3.5 months they were in the bubble.
Yeah. And then they had maybe a 2-month break at most, maybe a month and a half to get ready for this upcoming season. So it wasn't,
2 months.
It wasn't a lot of time to rest, because then you're training and practicing and getting your body ready for the next season. I went back and looked at the Bulls schedule because I wanted to dissect a little bit, like just, I guess the average was about 3 games a week, 3 or 4 games a week for teams. And I never thought that was that bad, because they usually played like 3 times a week. I didn't think that was a change. However, given the situation we're in with a condensed schedule and coming off of playing the bubble and finishing last year's season so recently, it's probably not a good idea to have any games like back-to-back games. Now, the Bulls had some, and it was mostly, I think, home games, like they're at the UC, but they're playing 2 different teams. Or, for example, one set of games, they were in Orlando. They played back-to-back nights in Orlando. I believe that there should be a break in between every game, just like what hockey does there, because they're very similar with 82 game schedules, the same length of playoffs. The NHL and the NBA are very similar with the way their season's structured. I believe that you should have a day off in between to rest the little knocks, to rest the little bruises. If you did tweak your ankle, you should be allowed to have 24 hours at least to recover, because yeah, obviously everybody wants their star players to play because they're the guys that are supposed to help them win. Those are the guys that are leaned upon. So I do understand the complaints a little bit. I do think a couple of things could have been done differently. And this whole, they're making the playoffs even longer than it needs to be with this goofy playoff tournament thing where like the 9th and 10th seed get to play, and the winner, gets the 8th seed, and then the other 2 teams, or gets the 7th seed, the other 2 teams, depending on who wins and loses, gets the 8th. It's kind of complicated and a stupid situation. So I do agree with that, but I'm also with Codey. I really don't know what to say about the injuries, because I'm not a doctor, so I can't sit here and tell you what's the kind of rest you need in between hardcore sporting events. But also there have been a lot of drastic injuries in the NBA for the last couple of years. This is nothing new. This could go back 10 years ago with Derrick Rose, where every year you're following his career, it's the ACL, then it's what did he pulled his meniscus. Every year there's something new. There's just some players that just can't stay healthy, and unfortunately there's quite a few superstars in this league that can't stay healthy, whether it's Anthony Davis or Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving is injured, and then he's not playing for personal reasons. I know it's not really my place, but it's like, dude, you're like, you're in the middle of your season. How many times are you going to take off unless you're injured? And Cody's right too. You know, now you have to factor into the fact that we're getting fans again. So ticket prices and attendance to games, you know, that matters to people. And I know fans could be ignorant with their comments and things like that. But yeah, I'm not going to a Bulls game to watch the second and third stringers play. I'm going to a Bulls game to watch Zach LaVine and Vucevic play. So, I mean, these are factors you got to think of. And like I said off the air to you guys earlier, I'm like, you know, hockey players, they take a puck to the face or they break their nose when their head gets slammed into the glass boards and they go get stitches and then they're back out there. And when it comes to the NBA, it's like these guys need rest periods all the time. And I'm not sure. And maybe this is something that needs to get brought up at the labor negotiations. Maybe it shouldn't be an 82 game schedule. Maybe you need to knock it down 10, 12 games so you can separate it to where you play every other night or every 2 nights. Maybe they need to try that and try spacing out, like you play on Sunday and then you don't play till Wednesday. But in order to fit a season in that same time frame, you're going to have to knock out at least a dozen games. And I'm not against. I mean, I think the 82 schedule is mostly appropriate, but maybe they need to try something out with these injuries. And some of it, again, guys, I think these injuries have been happening for a long time now. This isn't anything new. This isn't a new trend, but also, okay, we have to just deal with what we've been presented with the pandemic and getting, you know, away from the pandemic, you know, as we start to go back to normal life. So it's nobody's fault. Okay. Nobody put the pandemic on us. So, you know, even, you know, a year from now, we should be in even better shape than what we are now. We're still in that recovery process. So, I'm willing to try another 72 game season or a 65 game season, whatever they want to do, and maybe spread it out and try it for a year and see statistically what your injury numbers look like. So, but other than that, okay, you play every other night. That's just your sport. You guys are top tier athletes. Learn to take care of yourselves. I don't know. And that might sound a little bit rude or ignorant, but a lot of other sports, these guys play every other night, you know, baseball, hockey, they play every other night, the same type of schedule. But baseball does it for 160 whatever games, and you don't see them complaining about it. So,
yeah, well, you know, that is something you have to consider is, you know, it has been changing a lot in the NBA. You know, we have been seeing a lot more rest periods and things, especially for stars. I think a lot of that too plays into, you know, they see, I would say at least with LeBron James a lot, you see, oh, LeBron does a lot of rest, but they also want, he's ready to go and he's nonstop in the playoffs. I think you see that a lot with stars now, where it's just that you want to have your stars as rested as possible. I mean, even we can go back to Kawhi Leonard back with the Raptors, same deal. They did mandatory rest periods with him throughout that year. And look what he did in the playoffs. I mean, credit, everyone can argue, well, the Warriors weren't set. You know what? Forget about it. The Raptors won a legitimate championship one way or another because Kawhi Leonard was on that roster and he was given equivalent time to rest. So a lot of it, I think they just want it. If you want to give that extra push is why, yeah, sure. We can talk about the NHL. I completely understand that, you know, that it's 82 game schedule, resting days in between. So I get you, Will. I completely get that. And honestly, I've understood that the NHL, some of those guys get even more exercise, or at least more effort having to be put in, you know, maintaining the skates, having to keep up your heart rate that is going up and down the court as well. And you have to deal with getting bashed into a board most likely every few minutes. You know, the perfect combination of football and basketball and, well, even soccer. It's hockey. That's what it is. So you got a lot more abuse and they're even getting paid less too. Just another thing to keep in mind. Kind of crazy is all I can say, but there's method to the madness with the NBA. I see is why they do the resting, I guess.
Load
maybe
management.
We hope the NHL
That's what they
doesn't
call
do rest periods. Yes, that is right. It is load management. And you hope you don't see it in the NHL, I guess, if that's what we're worrying about. In terms of Adam Silver, I think he was stuck with a bad scenario either way that he was going to have to deal with for player injuries or possible injuries down the line. As Will said, I was going to bring up, if no one said it, I was going to say it. 2-month turnaround, you know, okay, 2 months compared to half a year. That's a pretty significant gap right there of rest that you are losing. You know, the All-Star game, I didn't think was needed. I get why they wanted it because, hey, we're already losing revenue. So let's try and get that $3 million like that we can take because, hey, that's a lot of money, you know, that we might not have or we'll have to worry about down the line. So sure, I get it in that sense, but players resting and we're seeing these soft tissue injuries, and other players already complained about it back at the time. Yeah, maybe we should have thought about it a little bit. Same goes for how the NBA moved up the start schedule to the 22nd rather than waiting until these turn of the next year. Yeah, maybe you could have waited a little bit longer. As Will said as well, hindsight's 2020. That's a lesson you learn later on. But again, and it's a very repeated phrase, these are unprecedented times. And one thing with this is for sure is that the NBA was going to get stuck in a 2-month cycle of saying, it's go time, guys. We got to accelerate everything so that we can do this. And that's what they were stuck with. So, I can't say too much beyond the fact that it's like, we were going to be worrying about this, I think, all along, because off-season schedules and such were already going to be thrown in a loop anyway. It's just hard. It's hard. It's hard to get yourself ready again after just being all hands on deck for well over 3 months and then saying, all right, we get 2 months off. Also, we had played half a season before that. Oh, damn it. Now we got to go and play a whole season pretty much right now. Can we get that extra? We can't get an extra week. Oh, well, this is just great. I hope I don't have a soft tissue injury or something like that. And that's what we're dealing with. And we're just dealing with the repercussions. Hopefully next year it goes back to, not as rare. I mean, soft tissue injuries happen, but, let's hope for a decrease, I guess. But it's a shame to see that it's much more frequent this year, but the turnaround kind of makes sense and kind of explains, I think, a lot of why we're seeing this happen.
Yeah, and the rest period that you mentioned, really important. The rest and recovery, because of what, especially it being in that bubble too. Not only physically does it affect you, but the mental health of these players. Especially, I know Tyler Hero, LeBron. Those guys came out and said, LeBron even came out and said, I haven't seen my kids in like 3.5 months, and just being stuck in. Obviously, LeBron had a he used to be on Instagram in the bubble. He had a great little suite there with a TV and his little Xbox and setup. But still, I mean, you miss your family. The mental, the physical toll is there, but the mental toll is also. You also take that. You have to also take that into account to recover from that. In 2 months, just too short a period of time there. But the NBA and the NBPA, the Players Association, both agreed to this schedule and agreed to all the stipulations surrounding it. So, I guess that's what we have to go with.
That's a good point, Yash. Everyone did agree on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't originally want it, but they
agreed on it.
Season, they good old compromise.
Yeah, I had to compromise, and so I know the NBA has done. I mean, I know they've vouched to have players to get like the vaccination centers to get their players fully vaccinated to help promote the process of vaccination, help promote safety within COVID-19. The NBA, and Adam Silver have done a phenomenal job in doing that and proceeding with that. But I want to touch on, Codey, you mentioned this earlier with the Pacers and Miles Turner and the injury bug in this previous question is. Found out today that Miles Turner is out indefinitely due to a toe injury. So how does this change affect the Pacers lineup, and kind of how does this impact the final stretch as we enter the final stretch of the regular season for Indiana?
The phrase, the rich get richer. Can we start the phrase, the poor get poorer? Please? Because
Yikes. But
it's been a difficult year for the Pacers already. First, you lose TJ Warren. People forget about that, by the way. A lot of people have, I think, when they bring up, how the Pacers from. You realize we've been playing without TJ Warren the entire year. # bubble MVP. But then you go through, you acquire Karis LeVert, who, thank God for that trade because it basically saved his life. the downside of that, obviously, he didn't get to play basketball. So they were without LeVert and Warren at one point. Then Brogdon's been battling a few nicked up injuries every now and then. Sabonis has as well as of late. Oh, and then, by the way, here we go. He's my defensive player of the year. I think the numbers are out there for people. If you just want to look it up, dude leads the league in blocks. And not only that, he changes shots around the rim so well. He's an elite shot blocker, an elite rim protector. So you're obviously going to miss that. And then at the very end, he can stretch the floor and hit threes. So what this means for the Pacers going forward? Well, one, we've seen great improvement this year from Goga Batadze. Our guy that we drafted last year, kind of had an up and down year, but this year and the time he's been given, he's really turned it on. And now he's going to get starter minutes. So here's your chance. Go out and prove that you can actually go out and prove that your consistency is what it has been over the past few weeks. He's been pretty damn good as of late for a guy coming off the bench. Overall, what it means for the Pacers down the stretch, I don't know. The Pacers are basically locked into the playoff and into the play-in game right now. They're not. I doubt they're catching, unless they get on some stupid win streak, which they haven't all year. They've won like 3 games in a row twice, I think, at one point. But then just when they look like they're turning the door, nope. Here comes another win, loss, whatever. They're locked into the play-in game. And I don't even want them to win that at this point. I mean, I don't want to. Oh, Pacers are in the playoffs again? Break out the brooms, everybody. They're going to get swept. Because that's what it's going to be. They're going to get embarrassed by either probably Philly or Brooklyn. So it's been a rough year for Pacers fans, and it just keeps getting worse. Hopefully Miles is able to come back. The term indefinitely is usually not good, but at the same time, it doesn't give a time frame. So who knows? It's a foot injury, and especially with a big man, you want to be careful with that. So, but hopefully got a speedy recovery. But till the time being, we're going to have to lean on Goga, and it's just been a rough year all around. And, as the Pacers cling for dear life as they hold the 9 seed right now. So destined for the play-in game. When they get there, I just hope they lose it, but we'll see how that goes. A lot can happen between now and then.
Well, the Bulls, they were in that 10th spot, and the Raptors, you'd be playing the Raptors if you.
I just want to lose.
When the Pacers get into that plane.
I want this season to be over.
You're feeling like
I
I was
keep
last year
saying,
years.
and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on this show.
Yeah.
I want to see what this damn team can do when it's healthy.
Yeah.
Have they been healthy in the last 5 to 6 years? Absolutely.
No. Yeah.
I mean, I could go through a laundry list of all the stars dating back to Danny Granger, who have just suffered major injuries for the Pacers, and yet it strikes again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the Pacers have been hit, like you said, over the past couple of years with that injury bug. I know we were talking about this off the air. You had the little handshake meme on Twitter.
Yeah. Pacers stars right here. And injuries. Nice to meet you. They go hand in hand. Pacers stars and getting hurt, they go hand in hand.
Let me get you acquainted. Let me,
Yeah. Sit down and let me tell you a little story. You'll be here for a while.
Spin your tail.
You may need a drink.
Yeah. Oh
you'll
man.
Be there for a while.
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, Cody, let's hope for the best for Miles Turner. Hopefully it's a speedy recovery. He's able to get back. And and get back into basketball form before the season over. But we'll see. We'll see how the process plays out for him, and what happens moving forward. We are in that, like I said, the final stretch. It's crazy to think, considering the season felt like the season just started.
Yeah.
But we're in that final stretch of the regular season before we hit those play-in games and that play-in tournament for this postseason. But before we end our night here, I do want to touch on. I know we had a little rivalry this past weekend within our podcast.
Mix it up, baby.
The Cubs and the Braves in the MLB went back and forth. The Braves won the series. Actually, the score for the last two games of the series was the same, actually 13-4, but the winners were switched. So I think the Cubs won on Saturday and the Braves won on Sunday, 13-4. This was a score both days. So just wanted to get your recap and thoughts on the series overall, and then what are you looking forward to in the when the Braves will play the Yankees and the Cubs will play the Mets in their next series?
Well, hats off to the Braves, Cody. It was a heck of a series. I wish the Cubs would have been a little bit more competitive in it, because the first game and the third game, not so much. It was, though the last two games were a lot of fun to watch. Either way, I mean, if you're a fan of baseball, those are the kind of games you want to watch, where you're just seeing a lot of offense, a lot of home runs. It's definitely a rough couple of days for the pitching staffs for both clubs, so we could we could agree on that one and suffer together. I The game on Saturday was, I knew it wasn't going to be, but I was, you're always a little bit hopeful that it would have been a turning point for the Cubs, because it's the most runs they've scored in a game all season. It was the first time they scored at least 6 runs or more in the entire season so far. So that just goes to show you how bad and how dry the offense has been. I mean, the perks of working from home still. I had to work Saturday afternoon, so I had the game on in the background, and I felt like every time I looked up at the TV, another home run, another home run, another home run, another home run. And the same thing yesterday, but not the people that I wanted to hit them. So, and I knew that was going to happen, because again, the story of the Cubs so far this year, and it's honestly been the Cubs of the last 4 years, dating back to 2017. This is what you see is what you get. It's one day it's a good day, the next day it's not. I'm really worried, and I'm curious to see what Zach's going to have to say about this, because I'm really worried about Kyle Hendricks. He's had many opportunities to show us that he could be an up and coming ace. And this is the year he's kind of getting the spotlight and the seat handed to him, because Darvish is gone, John Lester's gone. Yeah, they bring back Jake Arrieta, but I mean, it's, all signs were pointing to, okay, Kyle Hendricks, this is your rotation now. And you're just, it's been a lackluster start for him. I mean, to get pelted literally within the first inning, not ideal. He went four innings last night, 7 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 strikes. I mean, he allowed 6 of those 7 runs in the first inning. Look, baseball, we know runs can be very hard to come by sometimes. So when you find yourself down 5-6 runs within the first inning or 2 of a game, you basically you basically figure that's what the result's going to be then. When the pitch, look, if the pitching staff can't handle themselves and limit a team to a few runs a game, the Cubs aren't going to win a lot of games then, because it's going to be a year where the pitching staff might have to carry the weight and carry the burden of this team, because you just can't expect this offense to do much. Now, hopefully, Wilson Contreras and Anthony Rizzo, guys that have hit, Chris Bryant, a couple of these guys hit, multiple home runs in each of the last 2 games. Hopefully this kind of wakes him up. Again, we make fun of Javi Baez for being the strikeout king, but he's still leading the team offensively. He's up there with batting average still. He's up there with RBIs. He's got a dozen now. So even though he may strike out a lot, I mean, he's still producing offense. So bottom line is, disappointing they couldn't find a way to win this series, because they had the momentum going in the Sunday evening because of Saturday. So but hats off to Cody and your team. I figured this would have been the best time to win a series against Atlanta, because they're trying to figure it out, just like many teams are still. So it's early on, but again, again, I'm not surprised. This is what I expect to see from the Cubs all season, a good outing and then a bad outing. And it's just going to repeat itself throughout the summer.
Well, I hope to see some stability in the pitching because I was already, I mean, I have more expectations for Kyle Hendricks than what I've been getting so far to begin the year. Thoroughly disappointed for what we know. For what we know, Kyle Hendricks. I know he's not a flashy, throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastball type of pitcher, but he's a creative pitcher, and he consistently gets wins or puts the Cubs in positions to win since he has been with the Cubs, or at least since 2016. And I have been disappointed, to say the least, at him being the ace so far, because it's definitely not him. Zach Davies worries me too. These guys, those are the two pitchers in the rotation right now that I wasn't expecting to really be worrying about, that have me the most concerned moving forward with the rotation. I'm generally disappointed mostly in Kyle Hendricks, but Zach Davies as well. It just has not been a good outing for either one of them as of late. And of course, game 2, go figure. As soon as us as a group were texting each other, I'm like, typical Cubs game to have just a home run derby, if you will, only to then just have a deflated outing the next contest out. No consistency if you have an at plate presence. That's how the Cubs roll, baby. That's just how they've rolled for the last 4 to 5 years. If you got one big game hitting 15 runs, damn well they're going to lose and they're going to make it look embarrassing the next day. That's just how it works for the Cubs. So, all I took away from the Braves series, honestly, I get more concerned every time I see Kyle Hendricks or Zach Davies go on the mound. For the two guys that I was thinking were the most consistent, the ones that I'm like, I shouldn't be worrying too much about this. I should be okay with these two being able to at least give our batters a chance to bring in enough runs to win. Yeah, no, they're the ones that are most concerning at the moment in the rotation. And I don't really think it's too much of a, or at least I don't think it's close, simply because the rest of the rotation we weren't expecting much from. Jake Arrieta was like I said, 1-year deal, and right now he's the best pitcher in that starting rotation for Chicago. Shouldn't be happening, honestly. That should be either Davies or Hendricks at this moment.
Well, I was sorry to that it had to come against you guys, but I'm glad to see the offense starting to get things turned around. I was specifically one, and he's playing like an MVP right now, Ronald Acuna Jr. When you didn't think a kid could play much better, he's like, all right, well, let me show you. And hopefully he's day-to-day with an abdominal strain right now, so that he suffered last night. So hopefully thankfully we have a day off on today being Monday. So, but overall the series, the good old saying, payback is a you-know-what. I kind of feel like that reared its ugly head for the Cubs and reared its good head for the Braves. The offense, I wasn't expecting 13 runs, but I'm telling you what, we battled with injury a lot too earlier in the year, and Guillermo Heredia, dude I don't know where this offense is coming off the Braves bench. 2 home runs last night, 6 RBIs. That to go along with Pablo Sandoval, who's already had 3 home runs. I'm gonna learn. I failed on my homework. I said I was gonna learn to pronounce his name, and I did not. Our third baseman, or gosh darn, I'm not even gonna try. But who has hit a few home runs. This is the best Braves bench I've seen probably in my lifetime. The fact that guys are constantly stepping up when called upon, then you got Ronald Acuna, you got Freddie Freeman, d'Arnaud is starting to get things going. So is Azuña. This offense is really showing what it's capable of. While it's going to have to carry the load because Braves are battling, like I said, a crap ton of injuries, mainly to their pitchers. We have 2 of our starters on the IL right now. Hopefully, Soroka is coming back later this month, near the end of the month. Max Fried, hopefully. Then we got bullpen on the injury list. So the offense is going to have to carry the load. And they're more than capable of doing it. And just a sneak preview to the Yankees, Brian Cashman was quoted as, the Yankees have the worst record in the American League, by the way. at 5-10. So perfect time to play them. Brian Cashman said, we're a team that opposing teams want to play right now. So couldn't come at a better time for the Braves. So if they sweep them, it's just a quick 2-game series. We'd be back at 500. And so I think things are trending up. Hopefully, get these guys back from injury. Hopefully Ronald's injury. Like I said, he's day to day. So he may not play against the Yankees. Could be. Well, no pressure to run him back, though. When the Braves bench is probably, I don't mean to be tooting my own horn, but I probably argue the best in baseball. And the numbers back that up right now. So good series win. That's, like I said, hate to have it come against the Cubs. Cubs will get their chance, though, here in, I think, next week. I think the Braves and Cubs play again. I think it could be a 4-game series.
Next Monday. Yep.
Yeah, but right. I knew it was coming up. I couldn't remember if it's a 3 or 4-game series. But the Cubs you guys will get your chance to get some revenge, and maybe the best thing that could happen if it is a 4-game series is we split, and then no one gets bragging rights. We can just both be content with winning 2 games.
That's how the Cubs like to play. Win one, lose one. Win one, lose one. So, the odds are it's probably going to be a split. But then, everybody walks away kind of happy then.
Yeah. Hey, at least no one's, feeling sad. Everyone's a winner, but I would like to say, Cody, on your point, that, gotta give props to Ronald Acuna for the season that he's having.
He's playing like an MVP.
21 runs, 7 home runs so far. 16 RBIs so far to start out this season. I mean,
named Player of the Week.
Phenomenal start to the season for Ronald Acuna Jr. But I mean, like you said there, the Cubs will get their chance here come next Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Yes, it is a 4-game series. I just checked. So
yeah. I see Zach relieved, knowing that
I'm not really relieved, more just like, oh boy, I stress enough that I'm thoroughly disappointed at what I thought were the 2 more consistent pitching rotation pieces in the Cubs lineup, and I expect more from both of them, is all I'm saying. The Cubs already are batting deficient. We know that. I don't expect Kyle Hendricks to be the weak link as a ace. That's
Max Fried's been that way for the Braves too. He was expected to be our number 1, and he's had his start's been absolutely abysmal.
I mean, there's no place for that on any team, but it's just Hendricks was expected to be the one guy you're like, I can count on him to get me, at least 10, 15 wins this year. So not having doubts right now.
I know, Will, I know you also expressed a little disappointment in your Cubs. Hopefully with I know we talked about this a little off the air with MLB The Show coming out, you can get in and have a strong video game.
I'll win with the Cubs in the damn game. Look, one of these games or one of these days I'm gonna come on this podcast and be a happy sports fan. Yeah. I don't know when that's gonna happen, but we can only hope, right?
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I'm just putting thoughts out there, man. I know you're a little disappointed.
I gotta make a picture in that game, that's what I gotta do. I'm gonna
you could do a little dynasty
of the Cubs. Yeah.
I know it's it'll drop here in a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like I've been saying, I think it was phenomenal series. What a coincidence that the same score happened on back-to-back days. Just different, just swapped the winners there. But excited to see what occurs in this next 4-game series between the Cubs and the Braves overall. But before that, they'll have to face the Cubs will have to face the Brewers and the Mets before they get in, and the Braves they'll play the Yankees and the Diamondbacks, I believe, if I'm not wrong, Cody. There before they get to that stage. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for this edition of Beyond the Press Box. I want to thank you for tuning in and listening. And to stay up to date on content, to even join our debate, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Beyond the Press Box and look for our cool red logo. To listen to more great episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Beyond the Press Box there. You can just search for that on YouTube and find us as well. And we also want to let you know we're a proud member of the Unhinged Sports Network. So make sure to go to unhingedsn.com to listen to our podcast, as well as many other great podcasts as well. I know Zach Coleman, our very own, has a podcast on there that's all about football, the Gridiron Gallery. So make sure to tune into that as well. I believe that's on the Unhinged Sports Network on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Nailed it right on the head.
So, yep. So make sure to tune into Zach's podcast as well. Like I said, on Fridays, 11 a.m. Eastern. So, but with that being said, we want to thank you for tuning in tonight, and we wish you a great rest of your week.